What is going on, guys? I hope you're having a fantastic day. Today I'm going to be clearing up a few problems. I say problems, there are a few words that I've used in previous videos that people don't seem to quite understand, and one of those main ones is a word called psychosis. Now, I've used the word mental psychosis a lot in my videos because it's something that I've personally dealt with, and I know a lot of people out there do deal with as well. The definition of mental psychosis is literally just a collection of symptoms that directly affect the mind. These symptoms create a loss of contact with reality and a sort of you can't connect with the real world anymore. Now, mental psychosis then leads to a plethora of different, I don't want to say disabilities, but it can be the disabilities is probably the most apt word to use, because it takes, every person is different. It's what you have to understand about mental health issues. Every single problem will affect every individual differently. So myself, for a prime example, my mental psychosis led me to almost led to be unable to walk. Thankfully, I didn't lose any loss of motor functions. I had extreme pain. The next video will entirely encompass my trip to hospital and the way I was in and out of hospital with the pain that I was in. But very briefly, I was in extreme pain with the problems that I was going through. And to me, it was a physical problem. At the time, this was before I had my company, this is before I was a PT, before I went on the journey that I went on many, many years ago, back 2019, 2020, all through COVID. Now, I was in extreme pain. I know I've said this before, and I had shooting pains from my neck down to my knee, and it felt like somebody got a leather belt and slapped me as hard as they physically could with that belt. Now, being in this kind of pain, simply said, right, I'm in pain, I need to go to the doctors and they'll sort me out, right? NHS waiting list was like 6 months to 12 months because I was low risk, people dying, people, needing hip transplants and knee transplants and fucking all this kind of stuff, that fundamentally my shooting pains being such a young age were very, very low priority for them. So it was going to take a long time. I was in that much pain, I could not physically work. I was in horrific pain. I kept it very close to my chest, didn't tell any of my friends or family, and I hated it. I couldn't do anything. It got to the point where, mum was helping me get dressed and that kind of stuff. So I decided that I had to do something about it. So I paid for private healthcare, and rather than a 6 to 12 month wait time, I was in and out of the hospital within 3 weeks. X-rays, scans, assessments, all kinds of shit. Now, they turned around to me after 1 month and said, you are, from a physiological standpoint, perfectly healthy. There's nothing we can do for you. It is a mental health condition. Now, I had, at that point, completely lost my grip on reality, because I didn't know what was real, what wasn't real anymore. It blew my mind that my brain was able to control my body in that way. I thought I controlled my body with my brain. But fundamentally, that sentence doesn't even make sense, does it? So I was going through all of this stuff with only my mum and my dad, really, and my sister knowing about it, because I didn't want anybody else to know about it. Now, that then led me to go on the self-discovery journey that I went on and release the trauma that I had gone through. So at this point, from the therapy sessions that I had basically realized that I was regressing back to when I was the age of 10, 5, 2. I was getting younger because of the way my brain was trying to release information. My brain needed to release the information of the traumatic experiences I went through for over a decade when I was young, so that it could then move on with life. Now, this is what a lot of people are unfortunately unable to do, and because they simply don't have the knowledge about why their brain is wired the way they are, why they're in the pain that they are, and these different kinds of things. People who go to the doctor and the doctor say, no, unfortunately, there's nothing we can do for you. You're going to have to go on this waiting list and that waiting list. Thankfully, In the UK, healthcare is free because it's the NHS, and it is amazing. The NHS are fantastic, but they are horrifically underfunded, horrifically understaffed, and that then leads to a lot of people being in a lot more pain for a lot longer. And it's not the NHS's fault. It's obviously the people who fund the NHS is their problem. They need to give more funding to the NHS so that more people, like I know people who have been on the wait list for 12 months, deteriorated massively, and now fundamentally have long-term health issues because they didn't get the help that they needed in the beginning. So my personal mental psychosis led me to almost being unable to walk, be in extreme pain, and this did not go away overnight. I spent then a year going on a massive self-discovery service with extremely highly qualified trauma therapist, which helped me unlock my trauma, unlock the things that had happened to me, the memories that I had compressed and hidden deep down within me. I was able to then get them to the forefront of my mind, process the emotions, therefore process the pain, take control back over my own body, and be able to move forward with it. And this is something that people have no idea about, no idea, and they don't want to know. Now, these episodes come in cycles, and this is something that I call the cycle of life. Now, the cycle of life is imprinted on you at such a very, very young age, and unfortunately, it takes an extremely strong person to break the cycle of life. Not many people are able to do it. They just follow the cycle that was done to them. So, for example, they were abused, therefore they abuse, and therefore when they have kids, they abuse, and they abuse, and they abuse. Now, it takes an extremely strong person to break this cycle. That is the typical cycle. Now, there are a lot of people out there who refuse to allow this to happen to their kids, right? For a prime example, my mum is one of these people, right? I don't know many people who are strong enough to break the cycle, especially having, the level of abuse done to you that my family has unfortunately been involved with. Now, this level of abuse comes in cycles. Now, my mum was strong enough to break the cycle, and she thought that she broke the cycle because she refused. She is the most wonderful. Well, obviously, every single person's going to say this, but my mum is the best mum on the planet because of the knowledge that she has and the person that she is and the things that she's been able to do for me throughout my entire life. Now, every single man is going to say that about their mum, but obviously, mums are fantastic, generally speaking. Now, she was unable to stop the trauma that happened to me simply because the trauma that was done to her was done to me by the same person. Now, it's very hard to sort of explain in a 10-minute video. It needs an hour-long discussion to actually explain it properly. But fundamentally, she wanted to stop the things happening to me that happened to her. She tried her absolute hardest, and I can only thank her ever so much for that. I thankfully only had a decade of abuse, whereas she had nearly 20 years of abuse. So she was able to half that time. And again, when I have kids, I will ensure that I do the utmost to ensure that they do not go through any traumatic experiences. They don't have any ACEs. Now, going back to my mental psychosis episode, the mental psychosis led me to be in the position that I am now because I was put in an uncomfortable situation. I was forced to go on a self-discovery journey and discover these things about me, discover what happened to me, unlock the memories that were bottled away. So the best way to describe it is like a glass of water. Your brain from a young age is like a glass of water. It can only receive so much information, right? And if it receives too much information at one time, then your brain puts a lid on the glass and puts it at the back in the subconscious, and it locks it away because it doesn't have enough. Your brain's not developed enough to be able to process those emotions and those things that are happening to you. And this is this is what happens to you if you receive trauma from a very young age. And so what happens then, when your brain is fully developed at the age of 25, your brain goes, right, okay, I'm developed now. All of these things are coming back out again because I don't need to worry about protecting you anymore, because the brain is now fully developed, and it goes, right, information, boom, 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 boom. And I've met a lot of people. You'd be surprised how many people at the age of 25 just randomly start having nightmares, and all this information's blah, and people are just like, I don't know what to do with it. I don't know what to do with it. And that then leads to depression, anxiety. And if they didn't have it before, it leads to all kinds of different health complications and all these different kinds of issues. And that's not your fault. That's not that person's fault. That is simply your brain doing its automated defense mechanisms. And now it's like, boom, boom, done. There it is. Have it. Because it doesn't need to have those defense mechanisms anymore, because you are developed enough to be able to deal with those traumas. Now, that at that point is usually when it leads to physical ailments, because the reason that we have these physical ailments due to a mental psychosis episode is because of the amount of drugs that are dumped into our body. Now, you all must have heard of the fight or flight moments in life. You know, if you are stood next to a bear, what's going to happen? You're either going to fight it or you're going to flight you, and you're going to run away. Now, these fight or flight hormones basically just dump drugs into your systems. But it is adrenaline that is dumped into your system all the time. Now, if you are constantly being dumped with adrenaline, right? So say you have a traumatic experience that's tucked away in your subconscious, and now you have to remember, it's in your subconscious, so it's there. It's able to be triggered at any time. Now, if you have a certain noise, a certain smell, a certain person, anything that could trigger that, right? Because during that traumatic experience, you are in fight or flight mode, right? Because it's an automated response from your body in order to protect yourself. So when you are then triggered and you are technically reminded of that traumatic experience through any way, shape or form, you are then immediately dump fight or flight hormones into your system. And therefore, you then have those drugs in your system pumping around. Now, the more you're triggered, the more drugs are being dumped into your system at times, right? So, if you have a question, if you have a constant drugs in your system, what is going to happen? Bad things to your body, right? When I was taking MDMA every single day, right, and then I started pooping blood, right, I went to the doctor about that, and the doctor said it's because of the drugs. Obviously, it's because of the drugs, right? Now, it's the same principle. Just because you're not pooping blood, or you're not seeing the consequences at an early age, you will see the consequences of that drug at some point in your life, and it will take effect in everybody in some different way. Okay, and that leads to Louise Hay. Now, Louise Hay is a whole different conversation. If you want to look into her and her beliefs and her methodology behind why it affects everybody differently and how it affects your body in different ways, then please go and check her out. She's absolutely phenomenal. There's a lot of her I agree with. There's lots of her bits I don't agree with. But fundamentally, her generalization of how the body remembers and how it affects different parts of your body is pretty spot on, and it is scary accurate. So I'd highly recommend you go and check her out. But fundamentally, the psychosis episode that I went through much earlier than 25, because I've only just turned 25. My birthday was last week. So it came out for me for a lot earlier because I was put in an uncomfortable situation. I had my big motorbike accident. I then had relapse with the pain, and that relapse was enough. And that, at a period of my life, obviously, I was safe enough to be able to get these emotions out and get all of these traumas sorted. Now, that doesn't necessarily happen for everybody at such a young age. I was, 22 when I went through, 21, 22 when I went through all of this. And it is pretty fucking terrifying when it does happen to you, because you don't think it's ever going to happen to you. So mental psychosis affects everybody differently. It's very, very different. It's very scary, but it is something that if you have had a traumatic experience, you will go through at some point in your life. And the point is to be prepared for it, to not freak out about it, and to think that if you have these different physical ailments and you don't know what's going on, nobody can help you, then I'm 100% certain if you've been to the doctors and they can't help you, and you having all these different health complications, it will be due to trauma at some description. It will be due to an ACE, which is an adverse childhood experience, and you need specific specialist support from a coach or from a therapist of some description to be able to help you with the rest of your life if you want to change. Going back to last video, you know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result, right? If you are doing the same thing and expecting a different result, then you're never ever going to move forward in life. So if you want to move forward, you must try something different. Right, that is primarily what I wanted to cover, but other than that, if you have any questions, of course, please just do drop me a DM. Other than that, I'll see you in the next one.